everyone. Thank you for joining us. I am Tanya Jacob. I'm Head of Education and Community at Semgrep. And I'm here with my super amazing, awesome, quite excellent rule writing colleague, Kurt Boberg. Kurt, do you want to introduce yourself maybe briefly while we're waiting for people to trickle in?
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name's Kurt Boberg. I'm a staff security researcher here at Semgrep. I've been here for 2.5 years at this point. And before I joined Semgrep, I was one of the first paying customers at Semgrep. First 10 paying customers at Semgrep. So I've been writing rules for a very long time. And that's sort of my claim to fame around here is I spent a lot of time with the platform and a lot of time rule writing.
I feel like you have many claims to fame more than that, but I digress. He does lots of awesome stuff. Don't let him tell you otherwise. I saw everyone wanting to run up and talk to you at the offsite. I saw lots of people wanting to see Kurt. I know what's up. So I'm Tanya, and I'm the community nerd. I was a software developer, then an AppSec professional. Then I started speaking at conferences so I could get in and learn for free. And then eventually I ended up having very weird jobs like this one, where I get to do stuff like this. I speak at conferences. Sometimes I write blog posts or make courses for our academy. I get to hang out with customers. Yeah, I have a really weird job, but it's great. And so we're really happy all of you are here. Kurt and I were not sure where all of you are at. So we would like to ask you to put in the chat what level you're at with writing rules. Are you a beginner? Are you intermediate? Or are you a super ninja? I mean, advanced. Oh, that is an awesome mug, Kurt. That is so cool. Oh, that is very cool mug. Because if everyone's a beginner, we'll start at the beginning. But if people are more advanced, then we would like to do more advanced things. And we want to make sure that we serve the people on the call. I think that there's at least one or two more people. So you meet three. So there's 2 more people on the call. Where are you? Are you beginner, intermediate, or advanced? Sean, were you here last month? I feel like I recognize that name. Beginner. Okay. And then, no, you weren't. Okay, awesome. Thanks, Sean. Okay, so it looks like we need to do some of the beginner stuff, but then we could probably get more advanced by the end, if that makes sense. What do you think, Kurt?
Yeah, sure. We can go through the basics. So I guess to do the basics, maybe we'll just use the demo Python default rule. Do you want to do the same thing we've done in previous ones, Tanya, where you just screen share and do the driving?
So the first one, that's what we did. And the second one, Brandon's like, oh, I'm driving.
Okay. So I guess we can flip a coin, and I suppose I could drive.
No, I don't mind, but I feel like it's when we get to the advanced part, I might drive a lot slower than you. And do you want to?
Sure. I can start. Let's see here. I apologize to folks. My laptop is the small screen, and that's where my webcam is. And the nice big I can actually see things monitor is over here on my left. So I will do my best to make sure I am mostly making eye contact, but every now and then I will be doing some stuff over here on the big screen where I can see what I'm doing. Okay. So,
should I share the link to the playground? Like just
sure.
Nice. So folks, I'm learning too. So we've done 2 of these sessions before, and I feel that I know enough to be dangerous, but I don't feel like I know enough that I could write really good rules without Kurt. Oh, thank you.
Is that big enough? Too big? There used to be a way to make this sidebar go away. There we go.
I'm going to make my screen bigger. Is there...
How are folks feeling about legibility? Good?
It is
Thumbs
good
up,
for
thumbs
me.
down. Okay. It
Everyone
looks
else?
okay on the screen share, so. Cool. Okay. We got at least one attendee who says they can see okay. All right. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to change the language, and I'm going to spell it correctly. And we're just going to do pattern. Okay, so we're going to start here. I'm going to do most of this in advanced mode because that is where I live. That is my bread and butter. And as you write rules, this is I'm not going to say easier, but more straightforward way. And if you are a security person who's been in security for a couple years now, YAML is your best friend / worst enemy at this point because all of our security tools use YAML these days, for better or worse. Structure mode is really great for getting started because it's got a lot of guardrails for writing correct things. There are some features I think it doesn't support, and we nag Brandon as we find them because he's the dev that took it upon himself to rewrite the old simple mode for Playground into something a little more useful for customers. I don't use it because I am the top tier power user of Semgrep at this point. The editor was built for me. My name is on the scope doc for the current state of the editor, if you look at our internal documentation.
Kurt, can we share this with them, like the test code, or
yeah. So this particular test code is from an open source project called Moggles, which is a feature flag toggle thing written by Northern Safety. It's open source, so we can share around the links. That should be fine.
Are you going to call it the Moggle rule?
The rules demo rule. Okay, so starting from the very, very beginning. So Semgrep patterns look like source code. So if I want to match, for example, a function in C#, I was a public. I don't actually know if I need to do async, but it will, I think. Return to, actually, I could probably just copy this method signature. And I'm going to introduce one little piece of syntactic sugar because it's the most important one. It's where our logo came from, and it's kind of the initial superpower of Semgrep, which is the ellipsis. So when Semgrep was first developed, the idea was build an interface to an abstract syntax tree that was usable by people who didn't have degrees in program analysis or have spent a lot of time with program analysis and are happy to use raw abstract syntax tree stuff, which is some folks, but not most folks in the industry. So the intuition originally was, hey, what if we could make a way to interact with an abstract syntax tree that looked mostly like the code you were writing and had some nice abstractions to help you go ignore chunks of it that you weren't interested in. And that's where the ellipsis came in. The ellipsis is basically an indicator to the engine. It's like, there's some stuff here. I don't care what it is. And it helps you can template the shape of something you're looking for. So instead of having to, do all kinds of crazy regex hacks to get grep to work nicely, you can just go, the function is this shape, and you'll get stuff. Okay, so this should, fingers crossed that this should work right out the gate. Okay, and so we get one match, and we're matching the whole thing because the match under the hood, what Semgrep actually matches on is the lines of code based on this association between the lines in your source file and the abstract syntax tree underlying in the engine. So when you get this definition, it's like, okay, I found your method definition. I'm going to mark all of these lines. Then there's some more advanced tricks I can show folks later in the call if you want to surgically match bits and pieces of this. But anyway, this is a demo of the ellipsis. I basically said, here is my function. I don't care what the body is. I'm just looking for functions with this signature.
So this will get everything that's in the first curly bracket. So if there's another curly bracket that closes, it's not going to stop. It goes all the way to get the entire function.
Right. So it's semantically aware, right? Semgrep stands for semantic grep, and it's aware that those curly braces are the boundaries of that function definition. So it's not going to stop at the first end brace it sees. It's going to go to the end of the function definition.
That's awesome. So it's smart.
Yes, much smarter than grep.
Awesome.
So this is great, but it's also hyper specific. There we go. It's also hyper specific. So maybe what we actually want to do is we want to match any function, and any function that looks like this one. So this is what we call a meta variable, and this is kind of the second core piece of abstraction in Semgrep. So it's $, numbers, underscores, and capital letters, and it's an identifier for an item in the AST that you can basically relabel. It's like, I don't care what its name is. Anything that matches this thing, assign, basically generate a version of this or generate a meta variable for like things in the tree that match this pattern. So I don't think there's anything else in here that takes application ID, but maybe we'll find out. Oh no, there's at least one. So I'm going to run this again with this function abstraction. I think we'll get more than one match. Yeah, so we get 2 matches. The first match is on line 31, because so Semgrep also understands things like language specific stuff like method decorators here in C#. We'll talk about that a little bit later because it'll become important for one of the rules we're going to write later. But anyway, so the match starts at 31 because Semgrep considers those decorators as part of that function definition because in the AST they're related. So we have a match here on line 33 for get toggles. We also have another one that says get environments. So here we have this meta variable, and we can now match things that are this shape, but not necessarily the same function. This is really good for things like variant hunting, when you're like, hey, there's a pattern in our code base that looks like this vulnerable function. Like, we know that things that tend to have like this set of arguments or whatever have interesting security properties for us. I would like to go find all of them. This is a good way to do that. And that's one of the things about writing Semgrep rules is it's really important to cultivate an iterative process. If you try to write exactly what you're looking for right out the gate, you are probably going to have a bad time, because what usually happens is you're actually not entirely sure what you're looking for. So having an iterative process where you go, okay, I'm pretty sure I'm looking for things like this. And you go, okay, that looks pretty right. And based on this result set, actually what I'm looking for is a subset of that, and use that to refine your rule. So everybody good on meta variables? Yes? Like, basically an abstraction for this is a thing in an abstract in the abstract syntax tree. And I can now reference it. You can also, in other patterns, that we have a thing called meta variable unification, where you can basically track this meta variable through the AST. So future references to it make sure that it has to be the same thing. And in fact, I might actually be able to do.
I'm literally taking notes. So if you hear me typing, I've just been like taking a couple little notes.
Actually, I can probably demo this. Let's see.
We have a thumbs up from Todd, and Parsia is writing something.
I'm gonna do a little bit of demoing of
new feature toggle view model. Da, da, da.
I think, let's see. This is inside a link expression. So this might be interesting. Let's see if it works. No. Doesn't like the arrow definition.
So is that for if we're instantiating a new object?
Yeah, this is a, oh, there we go. Never mind, syntax error on my end. So here's an example of the meta variable behavior, right? So I defined a pattern that I want to look inside of. So pattern inside. So basically, you can think of Semgrep kind of as a bunch of set theory operations. Patterns are effectively defining ranges of source code you want to go look in. And so by using pattern inside, you can define a range that you want to look inside of for other patterns, which is another pro tip for writing Semgrep rules is oftentimes less is more, and nesting a bunch of inside expressions is your best friend.
Ooh.
Okay, so yeah, meta variable unification is.
Can you read it for people watching the recording later?
Right. So the question is, I heard something like meta variable reunification for tracking a meta variable through the AST. Is this a new feature or the name of the static analysis concept? My understanding is this is a Semgrep internal discussion of the meta variable behavior of the engine. So effectively, what we're doing is we're giving a label to a thing in the AST, and then we can then track that element through the rest of the AST and reference it by name. So like you can do this in any tool that gives you an abstract syntax tree. It's just whether or not it gives you a nice handle to pin, I would like to watch this particular component. That how we do it in Semgrep is with meta variables. So in this particular case, you see we've defined object as this instantiation of a feature toggle view model. And then if we want to reference any property read of that object, we can just use obj.prop in another pattern, and the patterns will unify that into it has to be the same object. And it has to be inside that, right? If we had a thing down here, which this won't make any sense because.
Can I add a little bit to Percia's comment? So when I was in college, I had to write a compiler, and compilers start out similar to stack analysis, where you parse out the code into different sections. And we would create tokens for various specific things. And so that's probably what's happening with the meta variable, so that you can track it as you continue through the tree that you make. And like, I think that the way Semgrep says it or does it is going to be different than a compiler, but definitely that is, not to speak for you, Kurt, but I feel that that's part of the magic of the meta variable, is that not only can we keep track of it, but have Semgrep be aware of its value as it's searching for things.
Right.
Sorry.
Yep. So yeah, this is kind of the TLDR definition of how meta variables can be useful inside patterns. If you capture something in one pattern, other patterns can then use that object to go look for sub properties or behaviors inside of another pattern. There's an advanced option that turns on meta variable unification across things like taint mode, which is our data flow engine. That is much more complicated, and you basically never want to turn it on because it causes taint mode to do some weird things unless you really, really know it's an escape hatch for people with very specific problems. And usually if you think you have that problem, no, you don't. So it's one of those things that we're like, it's like dangerously set entered HTML and React. Like it's there, but you probably should try everything in your power to not use it, because if you need it, you're probably thinking about the problem wrong. This is kind of how we think about it.
There's almost always an alternative to doing the super dangerous thing.
Right. Okay. So that's meta variables in a nutshell. And I've accidentally also sort of demoed another thing in here, which is combining patterns to get nicer results. So in this case, pattern inside to do a chunk and then look inside of it for things like property reads, which is this is another nice audit behavior I've used before. It's like, okay, we instantiate some authorization object or something inside a 10,000 line method. I know you've all seen them before. We know they exist, and sometimes they can be difficult to reason about. This is a nice way to do that. Semgrep is not just for preventing vulnerabilities. Sometimes it's a really nice way to serialize your understanding of a piece of code and then go repeat it across the code base and see what else you can find. Okay, going back to our earlier example. Here we go. So we can also, we just want to find all of our async task iActionResult functions with any arguments. This should find several 11 matches, right? Because what will end up happening is this will find every function definition in this controller. And if we wanted to be even more specific, we could do capture our decorator in a meta variable, and then we can use a variable regex. And we want to find things named like HTTP star. So we just want to make sure that we're capturing things that are decorated as HTTP verbs in our controller. And it's still going to be the same because I don't think there's any other meaningful methods in this or functions in this controller. Methods. I think we're in C#, it's methods. But we could be a little bit more opinionated and be like, I only care about state changing methods. Okay, so there's 11 methods in here, and there's 5 state changing methods. So, and this is another audit trick. You can also, if you are a red team person and you want to get a handle on, for example, routes, I think there are people who have, there are red teamers who have similar rules to this. Already found a controller.
I think it would be really cool if we had a webinar with a red teamer that shows us just how they smat. Like, I've had several pen testers tell me that they use Semgrep to validate all their results and like show in the code where to fix the things. And those are like next level pen testers, right? Like they cost more because they're way better. But I think that'd be so cool to see.
Yeah, so here we've got a bunch of controller routes, and the empty routes are because they're just verbs against the root route on the class. So, and you know what we can do? We can make this a little bit better with the pattern inside. And controller route. I think this should just work. Right, so here, and we could actually, so this is not super awesome. We could potentially do this, which will not be nice because we want to strip the quotes, but you could do a little bit of, and then we could also actually do decorator, and then we can put our meta variable regex back in here. Actually, probably don't need the state changing stuff, but and so now we get the verbs and the routes for everything. So this is a nice, if you don't have like a Swagger or an open API spec for something that you're looking for, you can write a Semgrep rule to get you not a perfect one, but a pretty close approximation to what the code actually thinks the controller routes are. And this is a .NET example, but it works for most things that have this sort of behavior in an application. Let's see. So let's see. Features I have glossed over. I think just meta variable regex. Pretty simple. You have a meta variable, and it just regexes on the contents of that meta variable. So it's basically like, that's a really good way to answer questions like, I want to look for methods that have like a CRUD, have like a CRUD operator in the name. So if I wanted to find, actually, that's a good one we could do. Here is meta variable for func, and I want to find anything with create. I think this is left. So maybe I can hack around it with a group. There we go. Yeah. Okay. It's because we're matching. What is happening here? Oh, it's because the decorator is doing something wacky. Oh, because there's the decorator's matching on more than one. Sorry, my brain crashed there for a second. The decorator, because I only have two decorators in here, basically it's matching. There's route and then another attribute with decorator. And so I'm getting a match for the verb and I'm getting a match for the authorizer decorator, because to Semgrep, they're just like, I'm looking for a decorator and it's got a name in it, and it doesn't know the difference between the HTTP verb decorator and the authorizer decorator. So, and in this particular case, there isn't a whole lot of extra information I can supply to the engine to tell, no, I only care about, unless I do the meta variable regex for decorator. Okay. And now I only get the controller.
Oh, that's so smart.
And so the other thing is we're still getting, so this is a great audit rule for a security engineer, because they might actually be interested in seeing the whole function getting highlighted or something. But suppose you wanted to promote this to a comment rule for, so I'm imagining a world in which like you have a policy where thou shalt get all net new API routes blessed by security for a project or whatever. You could write a Semgrep rule that runs on a specific project that's like, does this and is like, I look for state changing API routes and I add PR comments. This is a useless PR comment right now, because it's like, here's this whole function block. They're like, okay, yeah, cool. Like you can, in this particular case, you can infer what's going on, but it's developers don't like, hey, you highlighted like 100 lines. That doesn't help me. Like, what are you actually telling me about? And so for that, we can use focus meta variable. And we're going to focus func. And what this does,
it just shows us the function.
Is it just shows us the function definition that we're interested in. So instead of slapping a comment on like the end of the function block, which is, I think it's at the end of the block, which is where Semgrep comments right now, not at the start, because I haven't actually been on the receiving end of Semgrep PR comments in a minute, because I've been writing JSON compiler stuff. But Oftentimes where the comment shows up in a PR is based on the match range, and you want to make the match range as small as possible to make sure that the developer knows what it is you're actually interested in. What we're actually interested in here is the route function. Like, hey, you instantiated a route that does state changing things. Please come talk to us. And so this is the rule that I would ship for PR commenting, because it's very specifically like it's at the function definition for the API route. And it's like, hey, this thing does create ops. Also, this is kind of interesting, which comes on to something that we might want to write a better rule for, is scrolling back up here, you might notice that this whole class has an authorized policy on it that's only admins. And if we go back down to this line, I don't have quite enough context on this project, but as a security engineer, my antenna go up when I see this is a post that has allow anonymous on it with a state changing verb.
Where does it say allow Oh, I just saw that. Oh, that's no good. We should never allow anonymous.
Yeah, so this is an admin controller. And sometimes there is behavior from admin controllers that is okay to be anonymous, right? Like index pages, or sometimes there's property reads that are okay. And like, it depends on your business. But if I have a controller that has a global admin policy, and then it has an anonymous state changing operation, I'm immediately interested in that. So we could now write a slightly different rule in here that is like, okay, let's look for, so it's going to have a route. We'll keep that. The decorator is actually, we're going to want HTTP decorator. And let's see here. And this will be, I have to sit and think about this for a minute, because I could actually, it's probably okay if I do this, because it's going to be an API route, so it's going to have an HTTP decorator. Oh, actually, we just know this is a .NET standard decorator, so I can actually just use allow anonymous here. That should be fine. And we're going to want to go pattern inside, route controller route, and we're going to have authorize. You know what? We'll capture the policy just in case we care. All right. Now, and maybe we'll take out the create, update, delete, maybe new. If there's a new in here, remove feature toggle. Okay, control rounding errors. Okay, so we're still finding that, which is good. But now what we've rewritten our rule is we're looking for API routes in a controller that have an authorized policy. Controller route decorator. Let's see. Controller has policy route. And let's see, actually, maybe we'll add some additional context in the message. This is the other nice thing, is meta variables can be used in Semgrep messaging. So when you find things that are interesting that you want to show to your devs, like this will show up in a PR comment, right? This message coming from the match. So if I'm a developer and this rule is deployed in my environment, and I do this, and I open a PR with this change in it, what I'm going to get is I'm going to get a PR comment on line 341 of my change. And it's going to say controller features toggle controller has policy only admins, but route HTTP post API feature toggles create environment has allow anonymous.
Mm-hmm.
And like as a developer, actually, and then maybe I will have has a. Let's see.
Your message is very mature.
Yeah.
I would probably put perhaps this is bad ? like seems like a bad idea to me ? Check with security.
Yeah.
Yes. I like that. And then I'm Canadian, so I'd add please.
Let's see.
Like when I shipped a box to Semgrep headquarters and it said, please do not open this box unless your name is Tanya or Amanda in big bold letters. And then no one opened it and it was great until we got there. Thank you for coming, P.
State changing. As a state changing name. As a state changing name. And as the allow decorator.
So let's run it again.
Yeah. So this is what I would consider a production adjacent ready rule. Like this is now ready for me to like go run on my environment and see how many things it tags. One, if I get a bunch of hits in my environment, I have a bunch of investigating to do. But if it's a low number, and I might add this as in monitor mode for my policy for a minute and see if there are any new hits on PRs. And if there aren't, or if my investigation determines that actually we do care about this, then it goes into comment mode and it starts nagging developers when they do stuff like this.
Thank you, Todd.
Yeah, and this is the kind of what we internally on the research team would consider the like ideal evolution of a rule is you identify a thing and you go start looking for it and then you go, huh, that's interesting, and you tune the rule a little bit and you're like, okay, now it's starting to tell me more things. And eventually, because at the end of the day, we're a partner org with engineering. Our job is not to make devs' lives harder. Our job is to make devs' lives easier and help them ship secure code faster, right? We don't want to reduce the velocity of the business because many of us have equity in our companies and we would actually like that equity to pay off. So code velocity is good, actually. And so anything we can do to empower code velocity while also maintaining a baseline of security is ideally what we want. So when you're writing rules, what you're really looking for is to help developers make the right choices. And to do that, one, you need to identify problems, but you also need to communicate it well in a way that they like understand and it's easy to build alignment on this is the direction we should go in.
Question. And I think that Sean's going to put a question in the chat as well, but my question first. So could you take this role potentially and then use Query Console to look across all of your code base? Because so let's say you're looking for this in one app where you are suspicious of this, but it would make sense to check all your .NET code probably, right?
Sure could. Let's see.
Sean says guardrails can let you drive faster. I love it. And Ted says, it's great to see the evolution, not just the grep, but the scoping and the messaging.
Unfortunately, because I've pulled my example from something I know is on GitHub and open source, we can actually use Query Console to then go search that whole project.
Yeah. So what's Query Console?
So Query Console is an experimental feature that basically lets you take your editor rule and run it at scale across either, good news, there's just that one result. in feature toggles controller.
Have we
So
reported this to them? Because we probably should.
we have it. I literally found this yesterday while doing talk prep. So I have not had a chance to reach out to the maintainers. This project is also semi-abandoned, like it hasn't been touched in 4 or 5 years. So I suspect that it may, in fact, show up as a like, okay, yeah, thanks for telling us. Anyway, we're not going to do anything about it, which happens. But yeah, Query Console under the hood basically uses Lambda to spin up a whole bunch of little Lambda jobs that, in this particular case, clone a bunch of open source repositories and then run Semgrep with this one rule on it, and then it aggregates the results and then sends it back to you in a nice little digestible format.
So why would you use this, Kurt?
I would use this. My killer use case for Query Console is variant hunting. So when I used to wear an AppSec hat, I ran a bug bounty program and I would get bug bounty reports, and like the worst bug bounty reports would be something I'd have to go root cause. I'm like, okay, this sucks. I don't want to fix this one instance. I want to go find all the instances of the same problem, because bug bounty hunters are black box testers, right? Like they have their tools and their techniques, procedure, their TTPs, techniques, tools, and procedures. But they don't have code access, right? So like anything they find, they have to find by black box testing your user-facing surface. And they might just not look at things, or there might be things that have the same problem but are in different areas or haven't shipped yet. But bug bounty signal is really good signal on this is discoverable and can be exploited, especially if you paid money for it. So they're really good bugs to go variant hunt with. So what I would do is I would write Semgrep rules. I wish I had Query Console when I was a customer. We did not, because I would have used it all the time. So what I'd do is I'd write a Semgrep rule for the problem that got reported via bug bounty, because I'm going to have a strongly held opinion here is the right way to do bug bounty is root cause every bug that gets reported to you. And as part of that, you have to go read code. You have to understand why the code is broken. And if you have read the code and understand why the code is broken, you should be able to write a Semgrep rule for it. If you can't, you should file a bug on the Semgrep project, because that's engine functionality we should have. So modulo crazy inner file stuff, we're working on that. That's in the pro engine. We're making progress. It turns out without instrumenting a build, inner file data flow analysis is hard, actually. So we're making progress. We only have so many OCaml engineers. We're getting to it, we promise. But finding it back. So you should root cause the bug. You should know why it happens. And then you should be able to go, Semgrep rule, this is why this problem happens, in a way that isn't the specific function. It's like, this shape in our code base is bad. And then with Query Console, you go, okay, this shape in our code base is bad. Go look in our whole code base for it. And then you'll get 10 results or 2 results or 100 results. You have 100 results, you have a problem. And you need to go talk to your engineering leadership and be like, hey, we have a systemic problem with X. Sometimes you can do this without Semgrep. I've been at orgs where the JWT validation was a big problem across a lot of things, and we just had to go build a guardrail for it. It's like, this is how you interact with JSON Web Tokens at company X, and then you can start writing guardrails, which is another thing Semgrep is good at, and we can talk about that as well. But the killer use case for Query Console for me is variant hunting, because I don't want to pay for bugs more than once in a vulnerability program. This is why I really hate subdomain takeovers, because you almost always have to pay for them more than once, and they're a really dumb process failure. And if you just do the process right, you literally don't have that problem.
Kurt, is Query Console in GA? Like, can everyone use it, or what?
It is in beta, I think. And I think if you are a Semgrep platform customer, I think you can ask for Query Console to be turned on. I don't think we're currently working towards having it GA, because we just didn't see a whole lot of usage. So if you would like Query Console to be GA and you're a Semgrep customer, please ask for it and use it, because the squeaky wheel gets the grease, or the squeaky customer gets the engineering hours to GA a feature.
Kurt, if we want to attract more OCaml like programmers, we just need to have more karaoke, because all of them came and karaoke'd with me at the Basecamp event last week. So that's just what we need. We just need to have more Semgrep karaoke sessions. That's the answer.
It's true. I am also technically an OCaml programmer, and I also karaoke, so.
Right? That's 3 out of 3. I mean, I don't know what to tell you.
Cool.
I love it. You're doing a great job. Thank you, Kurt. I'm learning a lot.
At this point, I think maybe we'll like take a pause for sort of audience questions. Like, are y'all still kind of following what's going on here? Do you want me to deep dive into any of the features I've used? I think Sean said he's an advanced Semgrep author. Is there a feature or language or something you want to see demoed? The upside of a smaller audience is like we are happy to go run with whatever questions you folks all have.
Also, is there a rule that you've been trying to write on your own that you're struggling with? Maybe we could help. Todd says it would be interesting to see you tackle a Sean use case. I like it. Sean, I guess you're up.
And it could be any language. I can read and write every language, every major language that companies that make money use, I think, at this point. Other than Scala. Like, Scala is the one ringer that you could get me with, I think. And it's on my to-do list, but I've been busy with other stuff.
I haven't used Scala either.
More advanced autofix. Adding an import to the top of the file when introducing a new class. Okay, so is this a... So your autofix is adding a class, a whole class definition, or... I'm assuming we're talking about Java here, maybe. Let's see, I might actually make a new. This one is saved.
Oh, say we use a specific library to sanitize input. I think that that's already built into Semgrep.
Okay, so I see. So your autofix is introducing like DOM purify, and you want to add the DOM purify import.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. I actually might be able to do this. Might be hard because let's see. Let's see. It's been a minute since I've written JavaScript. Let's see, so we would. The downside of writing a whole bunch of languages is I am sitting here like, okay, I'm writing. What's my function? Something.
I mess them up all the time and confuse them.
Okay, and we want to fix. And we want, let's see, this. Okay, and then I think the fix is, let's do something dangerous. Purify. I have to remember. You know what? We're just gonna use a fake sanitizer so I don't embarrass myself with not knowing the DOM purify is like. I think if I had done this correctly. Okay. So, and I think if I'm understanding Sean's question correctly, what we actually want to do is we want to alter this so we are also doing let's see. I think we'd have to do a like a giant. I want to do a pattern inside here. Let's see. Import tuples require lib dot. Make sure that still works. Okay. No, I think. So what we want to do is we want to do a block autofix.
When you say block autofix, you mean it's a block of code?
Yeah, we'd want to rewrite. I think the problem is I think we want to rewrite several sections, and the match here is so. In order for the autofix to add an import, I think what we'd have to do is we'd have to match everything down to the function definition. And then re-export like the whole thing with an additional library, which might be actually for JavaScript specifically, you could do something horrible like an inline import, which is absolutely cursed but would work. I would not recommend doing that.
Why? Why not? Why is it
because
cursed?
inline imports are bad. They're just code smell. Like it makes it harder to reason about what's happening, and like you can do it. I also get upset when people do it in like Python functions. Like, I don't need this import except if this function ever gets invoked. So I'm just going to import it inside the function body. And this is technically correct, but there's a lot of like behaviors that are technically correct but cause problems. And simple is better, more understandable is better, more maintainable is better. I really try to over-index on code that I write now. I should be able to understand 6 months from now without having to read a bunch of notes. Or a junior new hire can read this code and understand broad strokes what's happening without needing a wiki page. And depending on your industry and domain knowledge that you need and stuff like that, may be more or less true. But for a lot of general SaaS widget makers, a junior employee should be able to reason about your program architecture at a very high level just by kind of reading it and figuring out what's going on. If that's not true, you should ask questions like, why not? And again, that is another potentially controversial, strongly held opinion of mine about software engineering. So So I think, Sean, the answer is I don't think the engine can do that right now. I'll go ask the engine team if there's any way we could do this. I know for some, I think for typed metavariables, so classes or languages that support typed metavariables, you could potentially add a fully qualified type name for your sanitizer, and then the engine could, at a future state, infer that that import needs to happen and then add it for you. But it would have to be typed languages, and we'd have to do engine work to support that. I don't think it's possible today. But what that would look like, let's see.
Kurt, will you tell the engine team about that after this call, though? Because maybe that's a really great idea.
I will absolutely pester Iago and co and see if that is a thing we could do. Let's see.
I feel like people that don't work at Semgrep sometimes have the best ideas because we all tend to use it in similar ways because we teach each other, and then we have someone come from the outside and it's like, oh, that's actually brilliant.
As we're oh gosh, okay. Let's see. Do something. Okay, so I think what this would look like in a future state is we would potentially have a like corp dot principal sanitizer.
Tape mode's a good one, Sean. Oh, you know what I could do is I could go find the video from Brandon because he covered tape mode too, and put them in the chat so you can watch those after as well.
Yeah. So I think my hypothetical future syntax would be something like this, where you have typed meta variables like foodcorp.sanitizer.html sanitizer $S. This is a typed meta variable. It's a syntactic sugar for meta variable type, which I can also do, which I think we'd have to do in the fix, because otherwise the fix would have to be a patterns key and have a bunch of patterns, which maybe we should consider doing, because I think right now the fix is a singular pattern, but if it's under the hood, it's still a Semgrep pattern, which probably means that we could define it as a more complex pattern, in which case you could match several regions and then autofix. So if we were going to do this meta, sorry, I'm seeing the OCaml code in my head, and I think there are ways that we could potentially make what Sean wants a reality. Maybe. Well, I'll have to talk to the team that knows the code better than I for a better example. We can also do a taint demo if folks would like. Oh, by side effect. Yes. Let's see. Yeah. Let's see. Sunglass. So we're gonna do.
Sorry. That's the video that I'm looking up. Okay, so this is one of the other episodes of the rules, and I'm going to get you another one.
Let's see. You. So let's see.
So we covered taint mode in those two other episodes as well, so that you just have like lots of content to look through.
Right, proper C#, thematic, modern C#. There we go. And maybe I'll start with this. Remove our fix. We're gonna put ourselves in taint because we're in game mode. We're just gonna get the auto magic pattern sources. Our pattern is gonna be public functions that return some type. And our taint is gonna be didn't actually do that. And because we actually want to. We want to focus taint on the string arg. Other type. I need a sync. And our sync is with and we don't care. Okay, there we go. So here is a super super simple intra method taint example, right? So we're tainting the argument to a function. Some things happen to it in the middle, and then the return statement has our sync that we're interested in. So let's suppose we have a sanitizer class using and so suppose we have a sanitizer or throw. And pattern advisors. Okay, so if we run this, we're still getting a finding, right? But in this particular case, I happen to know, and like this is an insane function based on a real thing that I have seen at a real company, where you have an access control check or a sanitizer check or whatever, and it doesn't actually return anything. It's just like either it succeeds or it throws an error. And so you won't actually get to that return statement unless the sanitizer does its thing. But because it doesn't, and it'll like, suppose it's like operating on like a ref, right? So it's mutating the input rather than doing nice functional things. Like imperative code does weird, crazy stuff sometimes. So let's like say that it takes a ref and it modifies intermediate. I don't know that this code is written exactly perfectly to illustrate that, but we'll put our pretending hats on and pretend that that's how this behaves. So what actually happens is this is a sanitizer by side effect. And unfortunately, one of the important things to have by side effect is by side effect almost always needs a trailing ellipsis, because what by side effect mean basically tells it is if there is a match inside the range of the sanitizer, things inside that range are considered sanitized. So this should now work. Fingers crossed. Yeah. Roll parse pen. Oh, because I'm missing a semicolon, I think.
Da, da, da.
No, we're still getting a match. Why?
How'd you bring all that stuff up on the screen?
So there's this nice little button here called data flow, and it will tell you what your what the engine looked at when it was determining your taint data flow. You can also inspect your rule, and it looks like there was no using food corp time. Say I mess up the synthesizer. Oh, this is what I messed up my meta variable. That's what I did. It was expecting a static invocation, not a error. Okay, gonna check my spelling. Okay, so my sanitizer throw. Yeah. So the inspecting the rule is a really nice way to debug a rule, and we're live debugging. So great, we get to show you another feature. So my sources are matching. So I know it's not my sources, and my sinks are matching, but like my sanitizer is broken. And my sanitizer is broken for a reason that you know what, let's take off the fully qualified type. Oh, this is you know what, this might actually be a bug, because I am doing I think now this should work. I think that was actually yeah. Nope. It's still not working. All right. I'm gonna copy paste this and make sure that nope, that's the same. Okay, why aren't we? Why is that not working? I'm making some dumb mistake here. Oh, a new keyword. Unknown API error. Well, that's new. I wonder if
So it isn't just you, Sean. It is not just you.
yeah. I wish I had a better example, because I'm kind of putting an example together. You know what? Maybe we'll use Python will give me less problems. So we'll just.
Just to be clear, Kurt, this has huge value. Like I find that when we give demos and they're perfect every time, that's not helpful, because in real life we make mistakes. And so I've always found like demos that go perfectly are not as helpful for me as when someone makes an error or they struggle, then they talk about it as they do their problem solving. That teaches me like 10 times more.
Oh. All right, so I think we now have the same setup. Mode paint. This is actually going to be a little else. Do some. Sinks. I think we're now back to the same thing, but do we not do type hinting in? Oh, I wonder if I can actually just do this. No, well, I'm using the Pro engine, so this should actually work. I'm going to cheat a little bit and use, although that doesn't work on intro file. We're going to see if this works.
Is it able to do intra file? We have to click Pro to do that, right?
Intro file is Pro. Yeah.
Okay.
I think inter function does work in open source Semgrep now, I think.
Can you show them where the button is to switch from Pro to Turbo?
Yeah, so the Pro and Turbo button is up here. I think the Playground defaults to running with Pro, but you can also run with Turbo, which is a JavaScript version. And if I use metavariable type, it will not work. So metavariable type. I think it might actually have to be. Okay. No. Oh, I'm dumb. Don't actually have to do that. I can just do this, and then I have to actually finish my Python method definition. I forgot that I can't cheat at that. Okay, there we go. And so we've got our sink, and so now we're back to where I was with working on the sanitizers, which should hopefully work a little bit better. Pattern. Sublet dot process r dot and by side. I should get no. There we go. Hey, I did it. Okay, so if I remove that dot dot dot, I think I will still get my finding with my sanitizer definition. I think. No, no, it actually. I wonder if that was a bug and it got fixed. Oh, someone not process R. That's why it's broken. Where is that? Before. that should still give me a sanitized result. Yeah. And removing the dot dot dot
Thank you
should
for
bring the
coming,
finding back.
Todd.
There we go. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think this is the thing that Sean is running into. And the reason this happens is because for when you are telling the engine that a sanitizer is by side effect, you need to give it a range that the side effect covers. And by default, that is with the trailing ellipsis is to the end of the scope. So this will, for example, if I do this is terrible code. Never do this. This should give me no finding on this should be, and now we're going to do test annotations. And this should give me a finding.
Oh, Kurt, there's another message for you in the moderator chat thing eventually for you to get to.
Okay, good. Okay, so quick aside here. If you are asking for rule help in the community Slack, please do send us a playground link and please send it annotated with test cases. Test cases are just comments that cases that shouldn't match are OK : name of your rule ID, and things that should match are rule ID : name of your rule ID. That is demonstrated here for Python. It's whatever comment is correct, whatever comment syntax is correct for the language you are writing in. So Java, it's // I actually don't know if the test parser handles multi-line. I wouldn't, because usually it's a single line. This is the line you should match. But yeah, annotated test cases are very helpful for us, the researchers, because human communication is imperfect. So you might be really, really good at communicating what you're looking for, and test annotations are not helpful. What we find most of the time with community questions is we almost always have to ask probing questions about, okay, I see your test code. I'm still not entirely sure what it is you're trying to match here. So having explicit, this line should match, this line shouldn't match, really helps us out when we're helping you, because it gives us a, programmatic way to verify whether or not the rule we have written is matching what your intent is. So if you're reaching on a community Slack, please do send us playground links with test annotations. It helps us out a lot and makes helping you much faster. Let's see. So Sean asks, so it wouldn't work if the sanitizer is called in method A, but if the sink is called in method B. Correct. If the, well, I think the answer is probably it depends, depending on whether or not we're looking at inter-function. But for intra-function behavior, I think this should give me a match on, yeah. So in this case, the by side effect has to be inside the scope. And so since it's inside the try scope, right? So the matching band here for the ellipsis is just to the end of the try scope. It's not to the end of the function block. If it was to the end of the function block, if I move this, it's inside a try block, that wouldn't make any sense. But if I had my sanitizer outside the try block, I would miss both of them because they'd be in the function scope. I think if Sean was asking about an interfile thing, let's see what happens, because I think Pro should do interfunction intermediate. And we'll move. Actually, almost. Put that there. 0 to 8. This should still. And we're gonna go intermediate. Oh, intermediate processor. Okay. And, okay. So I think actually, what I was asking is, should this intermediate processor with the side effect still sanitize it? Because it was sanitized as part of intermediate processor. And I think the answer is maybe. Ha! Pro Engine figured it out. So and so UI finagly stuff here. The open source engine would have still complained about this. It would have been like, I don't see a sanitizer in this call. This wasn't sanitized. The pro engine went, okay, so I got into some funk with arg1. Arg1 went to intermediate processor. Intermediate processor has the sanitizer you defined. The output of intermediate processor is safe. And so the pro engine figured it out and was like, actually, there's no match that needs to be made here. So pro engine is in fact smarter than open source Semgrep. So if you like open source Semgrep, the pro engine is better. So
it's true. It also has even better rules.
Yes. There's also a whole bunch of rules curated by my team. Not me specifically. I haven't touched the pro rules in a minute. I have written a few of them, but we have many other rule writers as talented or more than I, because at this point they may have more practice than me. But that we have a team of folks writing rules, and they just look for problems in Java libraries and stuff all day long and improve our pro rule coverage. So if you like the community rules, wait till you try the pro rules.
Nice.
So plug for Semgrep Pro and the pro rules, because as you can see, it did something really smart here that open source did not do.
Cool. Thank you, Sean, for your questions. Those are really helpful.
Thank you, Sean.
Yes, I think a lot of people have to drop, and that's okay. I'm seeing the number of people attending going down. I feel like if there are more questions, we might wrap up on this high note. Because I am moderately concerned that if we pick another really advanced rule, it might take more than half an hour to write.
It indeed may take more than half an hour to write.
But Kurt, you're really good.
Thank you, Tanya. I have a lot of practice.
That was super helpful. I learned a whole bunch of new things. I took a bunch of notes, but I'm also glad that this is recorded, and we'll send out the recording after to everyone, because like sometimes I was just listening, so then I wasn't taking notes. And so I might take more later. So thank you.
Yep. Thank you everyone for coming. I hope you got something out of this time. I hope you learned something about Semgrep. And it's okay if I learned what an ellipsis is, because everybody starts somewhere. So the engine is really, really handy for answering questions about code. It doesn't necessarily have to be vulnerabilities. You can use it to. I have a exponential backoff circuit breaker pattern that I am expecting to be places. Is it missing on API controllers? It's really good for questions like that. Like, it doesn't have to be cross-site scripting, blah, blah, blah. Like, if you can ask a question about code, Semgrep can probably help you answer it. And if it can't, we want to know about it, because the vision for Semgrep is it's the way you ask questions about code. So please do. Reach out in the community Slack if you have questions about rules. There is a rules channel in the community Slack. We're pretty good about responding. It really does help if you have a playground link with example code. It doesn't have to be exactly your company IP, it can be a really contrived example. Actually, contrived examples are better because then it's easier for us to share them amongst the team. But yeah.
I learned things like the idea of semantics so I knew it stood for semantic grep, but it sounds weird. It didn't occur to me like that the word semantic means so many things. And it sounds weird, but I kind of think of it in a new way. So that's really helpful. It's almost like contextual grep. Like it's quite interesting. And also I didn't know that the ellipsis was the inspiration for our logo. I love that. Yep. I love it. Well, thank you so much, Kurt. Thank you, everyone, for coming to look at the rules. If you are a paying customer, please ask for Query Console and try it. It's actually super cool. And like, it is Kurt's baby, so he's biased, but it's not my baby, and I think it's awesome. And so if people don't ask for it, then we don't know if you want it. But then if you use it, give us feedback so we can make it better and better.
Feedback goes directly to Slack. If so, an engineer will get pinged if you fill out the feedback for Query Console.
Nice. Awesome. Okay, well, thanks everyone for coming today. I really appreciate it. Kurt, oh, thank you so much. You're so awesome. And
thank you, Tanya, for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. Awesome. So we'll see you all on the next Semgrep event. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.